And good evening and welcome to the 2D podcast. Much to get to today. The Bills losing Von Miller to ACL surgery. Does this kill their Super Bowl chances? Jimmy Garoppolo's down with a foot injury. Maybe not for the entire year, but certainly going to be out for a while. Lamar Jackson sprained knee. What's it mean for his contract? Cowboys a little bit leery of Odell Beckham Jr. Deshaun Watson returns. Browns win in spite of him. The Titans decided to fire their general manager. Raiders have won 3 in a row. The Lions are hot. Going to actually make Eric Eager look like he knows what he's talking about. Baker Mayfield resurrect his career in Los Angeles. What are we looking for this week? It's all coming up on this week's edition of the 2D podcast.
This is the 2 Deep NFL podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. 2 Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric is the senior VP of Research and Development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. 2 Deep Podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
All right, boys, a lot to get to. Let's get it started here. Let's talk about Von Miller. This has been a bit of a shell game, Jeff, so far from the Buffalo Bills. First, he's hurt. No, it's not so bad. He might even play this week. And then, and we had people in the chat room saying, hey, I got friends up there in Buffalo. He's hurt worse than they're letting on. Now they say it's an ACL. What do you make of the shenanigans, and what does it mean for the Buffalo Bills?
You do wonder why this took so long to come out. I do understand how you get into a surgery situation and you're looking at things, but if this was an ACL, they should have said this from the start. I mean, it's I don't know what kind of gamesmanship they gained by doing this. I'm sure they were hopeful that it would not be an ACL. Sometimes you have to wait until swelling goes down and MRIs are done and all this stuff. But yeah, there are people in our own comment section talking about this. And the Bills play it pretty close with the vest, so I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that this didn't come out earlier, but it's a big hit. It does make them need that first round bye a lot more now, because if you're losing a player that caliber, a guy who was supposed to be a huge difference maker for you in the postseason, you have to find another advantage now. And I thought they were the kind of team with him playing that no matter where they were playing at, they were going to be okay in the postseason. Now you probably need to have that first round bye, that week off. You need to have games being played in Buffalo where the weather can be a factor. I still think their roster is really good. And let's not forget, this team was 13 seconds away from playing in the AFC Championship game last year, so there's still plenty to like about them. But yeah, they took a big hit and came back. I wouldn't say came back to earth because they've had their struggles, but they're certainly facing some more challenges now because he's not playing.
And listen, I know a lot of people will say like, oh, you just don't like it because you don't know. You guys are in the media. What does it really matter? Well, I don't know, billions of dollars in sponsorships from offshore. Or not offshores. Now they're onshore casinos. Like think if in the 7 days that they were jerking around about this, you went and bet the Bills to win the Super Bowl. I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed. Like I do think that the information needs to be put out there honestly, particularly when the NFL is partnering with these casinos. I mean, I think that's it's always been. Listen, the injuries have always been there because the gambling they knew fueled people watching the games. But now they're in bed with them. Now they're getting a cut of it, right? So, like, there's no reason for them to not be transparent about it. So, my pet peeve, it's always annoyed me going back from my, high school football card days. It would piss me off back in the day. But I digress. What does it mean for the Bills, Eric? Is this lights out on the Bills? Do you agree with Jeff? They need that bye week or it's going to be a tough go for them?
Well, the bye week doesn't really help the Von Miller thing. The other one that's disappointing is they had a first-round pick named Kahir Elam, who, for all indications, got deactivated Thursday night against New England because of performance. Tre'Davious White has been slow to come back. So maybe that's one where but like Micah Hyde's out for the year, I believe, right, Jeff? And or at least out for a while. So like the bye week doesn't help them there. The bye week helps Josh Allen's arm. The bye week helps them from a perspective of being able to game plan. So yeah, I mean the bye week matters for all three of these AFC teams, the elite teams, Cincinnati, Kansas City, and Buffalo. It hurts them, but the big thing that the Bills were able to do is get pressure with four. They have depth, good depth everywhere on the roster. So if this was like Chris Jones on the Chiefs, I think it'd be worse for the Chiefs than Von Miller is for the Bills as a loss. But it still is going to sting for them a little bit. I don't think it necessarily makes them less than the favorite, but it hurts their favoritism in the markets, in my opinion.
Yeah. I listen. We see teams all the time, that get into the Super Bowl being hurt, like the Patriots. I remember, we've talked about Trent Brown in relationship to Orlando Brown, but Trent Brown wasn't plan A for the Patriots, yet they won a Super Bowl with him out there at left tackle because they had lost their left tackle. Injuries are a part of the game. That's why you need to build a deep roster. You need one, a Hall of Fame quarterback, two, a Hall of Fame coach, and then three, a deep roster, right? That's the recipe for it. And the Bills were good enough to win a Super Bowl last year without Von Miller. Von Miller just made him the preemptive favorite, right? Like, I think that's the difference. I think we all, the betting markets, Jeff, as Eric likes to refer to, still has the Bills as the favorite. I mean, would you still put them number one, or would you say that it's a group of two or three? How would you view it?
They're still one. They're not, I think if they were a 98 going into the season, they're more like a 94 now. It's not like, they just dropped a whole tier in my mind, but it's, again, he is a player who's won 2 championships. He's been a Super Bowl MVP. He was the guy who would put them over the top. Now I think there's more vulnerability there, but let's face it, this team is always going to be about Josh Allen and whether he can get it done in those moments. Because when you're talking about winning a championship, that's where the Patrick Mahomes separated himself. That's where Tom Brady separated himself. That's where Nick Foles showed up when Carson Wentz went down. I mean, people have lost key players in championship seasons and found a way to win because they had deep rosters. And so I feel like a lot of those guys that are out, except for Micah Hyde and Von Miller, will be back on this team as they make their stretch run. This is a great opportunity they have in the next 5 weeks with 3 divisional games and the Bengals to show what they're about. And I say it all the time on this show. If you're really a championship caliber team, you've got to go through some adversity to get there. And this is a great narrative they can write for their season. If they can use this as motivation, if this can galvanize themselves. Sometimes we talked about the Chiefs yesterday in terms of understanding, hey, you're not the best team anymore. You got to fight with people. The Bills are learning that lesson right now too. You've lost your home run hitter. You better go out and fight every game to get that championship that you want.
Eric, let's talk about the roster construction of the Buffalo Bills, right? This is the roll of the dice when you take a 33-year-old guy. I mean, he had injuries for a couple of years, put it all together last year. They go on a Super Bowl run, but all players that are 33 years old are more susceptible to injuries. Anybody with the wear and tear is there. At the end of the day, was this a move that they didn't have to make? Is this a move that they should have, even though they don't have the championship? We've talked about this a couple of times this year. That having never won a Super Bowl, being all in, anything that happens, we'll win the third or fourth when we'll worry about that crap after we get number one. But whatever it takes to get number one, this is what we got to do. It paid dividends. Jeff talked about it. The Rams sent a lot of people scrambling to try to copycat the Rams. And in a way, the Bills grabbed even one of their most important pieces, the actual player, and trying to copycat him so much. But are we going to find out over the next couple of years while everybody does that? There's going to be a lot of really disappointed teams and a lot of really bad teams in a couple of years, including the Rams, for making moves like this.
Yeah, the Bills, are basically at negative $18 million in effective cap space next year, despite, effective cap space has to do with how many players. They only have 37 players on roster under contract next year. They're $5 million over after you factor in the fact that they got to fill those spots. They're $18 million over, right? So that puts them in a tough spot. Miller missed all of the 20 season with an injury. He missed a lot of last season with an injury. Even when he got to LA, he didn't play every single game. So, I think edge players are players. We remember with Tom Bahali. We remember with, some edge player, Terrell Suggs won a Super Bowl in Kansas City. Like, you can play edge later into your career, but can you be that rock type of like cornerstone foundational player when you're that age and when you've had that injury history? I think, I would just say for all of and we have, broad NFL fans on this show, but I would say for our Kansas City fans, just be happy you won the 19 Super Bowl, because you don't have to do this kind of stuff when you finally won one, right? And I think for the Bills, I can't really blame them necessarily, but these gambles, you think about it, we talk about sports betting, right? Kansas is legal. Like, everybody's going to say, well, it's a sure thing. It's like, no, that was like betting the Chiefs plus 14.5 minus 5,000 in the Super Bowl against the Bucks, right? Like, some of these bets, like, they lose, even though they're very likely to win. And I think Miller here is one that might end up losing for Buffalo, even though, they in theory bought what looked like a sure thing.
Yeah, roster construction is important, Jeff, and it's a copycat league. And just because there's a lot of different ways to get there, one team does it, then everybody decides that's the path. And I feel bad for the Bills because they've been so close, 4 consecutive seasons. What a gut-wrenching time. They won an AFL championship back in the day. Their fan base is incredible. Who spends more money on plastic tables than the city of Buffalo, right? Lighting them on fire. How many fractured hips and pelvises and tailbones have been, undertaken in the name of the Bills Mafia? And now, they do take a big hit. This is a tough one, but they knew the price of betting on a guy this old.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, again, I'm not going to write their epithet just yet. I think there's a lot that goes into this. In fact, the way he got hurt was just a very freakish thing. That wasn't about being old. That was being in the wrong place at the wrong time and having a 300-pound guy fall on your leg. And so I don't want to, say this was about them betting on a guy who was getting up there in age. I do believe, again, that I think we'll find out if they needed to have him to win a championship. Just in the same way, Odell Beckham Jr., who we'll talk about later on the show, there's so much, hey, can the Bills or the Cowboys, the Giants, all these teams scrambling to get him. And it's just like, maybe you don't need that guy. Maybe you've got enough in your locker room to make it happen for yourself. And I understand the concerns long-term, cap-wise and all this stuff. And I agree with you. I think if you've been to Buffalo, been around their fan base, been around that team at all, you really do root for them to a certain extent to have some of that frustration and heartbreak finally exercised from their franchise history. But again, someone said a second ago in the comments, Josh Allen's elbow is the key here. And he needs to be healthy. He needs to play at a level offense. If he's playing his A game, if he's playing with Josh Allen we saw in Kansas City last year in the playoffs, like, nobody can beat this team. That's what it comes down to for me. It's like, Von Miller's a great story, and he's a great player, and he had a great impact. But if Josh Allen is playing like Patrick Mahomes has played at the height of his career, or Tom Brady, whoever else you want to throw out there, they'll win the championship.
Yeah, I think you get Von Miller in case something else good. They were good enough, but who might you lose along the way, right? And so if we lose them, we've got Von Miller. Von Miller only counts $5 million against this year's cap, and I'm with you. Like, an injury can happen to anyone at any time, but it's the cap that it's the hit they're going to take in years to come. For this year, the $5 million cap hit, it's not that big a deal to lose him. It's not like he kept them from getting 5 or 6 other players. But next year, when he counts $19 million. And he's 34 with now an ACL that he's trying to come back. And the following year, when he counts 21.2, he's 21.8 to cut. It's a 3-year deal that they've got to keep. If they walked at that point, it's $7.5 million to cut him. That's I think no, this doesn't kill him because he's not counting that big number. But if he's playing 8 games and they're weeks 1 through 8 next year, that might kill him, right?
And I think they're a solid enough team. I'm curious what Eric would think about this, but you look at the players on their roster who would be hard for them to lose. There really isn't that big of a list. I think Diggs is on that list, obviously, and obviously Poyer and Hyde and Tre'Davious White are on that list. The linebackers, I think you can replace those guys. There's no one else on their defensive line who you worry about. Same thing with their offense. I think that they've set it up in a way that they can feel good drafting young players and sliding them in around their stars, which is what you want. You don't want to have, okay, we can't really afford to lose 3 guys if we want to stay at the championship level. I don't think they're in that spot.
Yeah, and Josh Allen is, by the way, I got a question in the chat room if you're catching us via the podcast. We stream live. It's Wednesday nights at 9 p. Central. Terry asking, is Allen on a second contract? He is, but he's 1 year behind Mahomes, so the cap number, in fact, I'll tell you, I've got the Bills cap up. His cap number this year isn't as big as it's going to be. It's $16.3 million, so he's still in that part where they backloaded things, and so they haven't got the full force of that. He's technically on the second contract, right? Is this year?
He has to start his second. He's year 5.
It's year 5, but he signed
he's
the
on his
extension.
5th-year option.
Yeah,
he,
but
he signed his after year 3, so years 4 and 5 are a little cheaper as they ramp up.
Yeah. 5. He's not, because the 5th-year option I think would have put him in the 25, 26, 27 range, but because it counts now on the new contract, they brought that number down. It's the prorated portion, and so he's only 16.3. So he effectively, no, he signed a second contract, or I guess I'd say reality, no, he signed a second contract. Effectively, yes, his price tag is still first contract money. So I think that will help them as well. Try to get through all this. Jimmy Garoppolo goes down, Eric. He needs surgery. Originally, he was done for the year. Now they say he can come back. What does this do for the Niners? Is this a big deal? It's a sad story for Jimmy Garoppolo, who was the loyal soldier throughout difficult times, to see him go down while he's again manning a team that looks like it's good enough to make a run at a championship. You hate to see that. What does this do for the Niners' chances?
It hurts them. Purdy. It's funny because everybody, wants to ding Jimmy G for being an average quarterback that's buoyed by a great offense, right? But when you look at everybody else that has played for Kyle Shanahan, Nick Mullins kind of, CJ Beathard's not good. Trey Lance hasn't played well in that offense. So there's certainly something that Jimmy Garoppolo does that makes them be successful. So I think some people are rushing to say, oh, Brock Purdy can be good enough, and he was okay. He averaged like 5.5 yards in a tempo. It's like, let's chill out here. So it hurts the Niners. And it hurts Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G, though, showed enough this season to get a contract somewhere, especially with the way the league has gone. But yeah, it hurts the Niners a lot. I think, prior to last week, people would have put them as the number 1 power rated team in the NFC. And now they're firmly beneath Dallas and Philadelphia.
Eric just crapped all over Brock Purdy. I thought not bad for a guy who didn't take any reps.
Brock is an understudy of my friend Sage Rosenfels.
I was going to say, Eric's pretty close to Sage Rosenfels. He's not going to take any Iowa State quarterback over Sage.
Yeah. Listen, Brock Purdy, I heard all about his freshman year. He was going to be a top 5 pick and not going to make it to a senior year. He never got any better.
Kind of like Herbert.
I don't. It's just wait. Yes, Brock Purdy and Justin Herbert. I put them side by side. He never got any better, really, at Iowa State, and I was always kind of like, "What's the deal?" I mean, whatever he is now, this is what he will be his entire career, based upon what I saw, and I covered a lot of him at Iowa State. He will get no better. So whatever he is, this is it. So enjoy it right now. I'm glad he debuted pretty well, but I say that tongue in cheek because maybe it was the talent around him, because Iowa State crashed hard this year. So maybe the talent around him wasn't that good, but what do you make of the chances? I actually think he's got a decent chance to just hand off the football, feed the running game. If a Bosa can actually stay healthy, their defense is pretty fierce. He's got some weapons. I think they can, he can take the baton and maybe hand it back to Garoppolo going into the playoffs, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think in theory that sounds great. We don't. Has there been a specific timetable on Garoppolo's return? I know they're talking like 7-8 weeks, but is that kind of puts them in NFC Championship game, Super Bowl territory for him to return, right? That we're talking about.
There are 5 games left, so that's 5 weeks, and then week 6, week 7, That would put him in the divisional round if they
Yeah.
got a bye, if they can get to the 1 seed, which I don't think they will.
No.
But it looks like they theoretically can have him back for the divisional round, conference championship, and Super Bowl.
Yeah. And so, look, I'm a big fan of the Niners as far as what they have on their roster. Great defense when it's healthy, a lot of weapons. I just have a hard time believing that a first-year quarterback thrown into this kind of situation is going to be able to produce consistently enough to get them to a championship game or to a Super Bowl, to get them to a place where Jimmy Garoppolo can step back in and win them a championship. And I love them with Garoppolo playing because I do think he's better than people give him credit for, a lot like Alex Smith, really good winning percentage. We can talk about how many passes they threw in last year's playoff games and how much they try to limit what he does. But again, when you're talking about any quarterback who's going to have to play in the playoffs against it, the NFC doesn't have the level of talent as far as teams go that the AFC has, as star power. But defensively, the Eagles and the Cowboys are just as much of a beast as the Niners are. Those are the top 2 pass defenses in the NFL right now. And so you're going to ask a guy who wasn't even playing in this league, wasn't even playing, 2 weeks ago, to step in and have to make some plays against those kind of teams where you've got guys like Darius Slay and James Bradbury and Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons getting after him. I just don't see where they're going to survive that. They'll win the division. They will probably be able to maybe win a game in the playoffs, but at some point, that's going to come back and bite them.
All right, so there it is. So you've got the 49ers winning the division because that's one of the questions we had here in the chat room. Quinn wanted to know, Seahawks or Niners, who wins the division? You're on the Niners, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm on the Niners.
I'm on the Niners. Eric, where are you?
Seahawks have to go through the Chiefs, so they're going to at least lose one more game. But I think Jeff, you make an interesting point. Like, don't you think that the talent level in the NFC, I feel like the difference between the NFC and the AFC is just the quarterback play. Like, I think if you take the quarterbacks off of all of the teams in the NFL, I think the NFC is just as strong as the AFC. Expect Philadelphia without the quarterback. And Jalen Hurts is fine. Don't get me wrong. Dak's fine.
Yeah.
But you take Dallas minus the quarterback, that's a better roster than Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kansas City. If you take Philly, it's the same thing. San Francisco, certainly of that group, take the quarterback away, better than those 3 teams. And I also think if you look at Tampa Bay, at least on the defensive side of the ball, they're every bit as good. And they're like maybe a step below those 3 teams. But the problem is,
wait a minute, real quick, just to clarify for people, are you talking about the rosters that are actually going to take the field, or are you talking about if everybody's healthy? Like
if everybody's healthy, I mean, if everybody that is healthy enough to play in the playoffs is playing, like Tampa's defense is really good too. It's just their offense can't get their head out of their butt. Like that's, so it is about the quarterback play. But I think weirdly, Jeff, in the NFC, right, like it's that's why the Cowboys, in my opinion, are the favorite, right? Because every team is kind of the same as far as like roster composition, and Dak's the best quarterback in that conference right now.
So I guess I don't know what you're arguing. You're arguing whether the NFC, am I underestimating the NFC, or you're saying that
I'm just saying
the
that,
quarterback play isn't as great that he has a chance?
I'm just saying that the Niners are just like every other NFC team except for the Cowboys, where they have a great surrounding cast, and the quarterback, now of the weaker quarterbacks, he's the weakest. But
that's what I thought he was saying. So I was like, I'm going to hear this.
I mean,
more clearly.
We're not going to do this. But you're constant crapping on Justin Herbert and pointing to the record. When does Dak Prescott piss a drop in the playoffs for how you annoyed him? Like, listen, I've been hang on. I've been the guy that was slow to come around on the Eagles. I'm coming around on the Eagles because Jalen Hurts is spinning the ball. He's got weapons and he's throwing it, right?
Jalen Hurts to death. Guy hasn't won a playoff game either, Soren.
He hasn't, but at least he's had one shot. He's 0 for 1. How many shots has Dak had?
Dak Prescott. So let's face facts here. Justin Herbert's career record is 21-23, if I'm not mistaken. Dak Prescott is 58-34. Dak Prescott is 58-34, and because he's lost in the playoffs a couple times, You want to crap all over him? What the heck?
I don't want to crap all over him. I just don't understand. I just don't see the consistency in your view between these two quarterbacks. Okay, Dak is a way better regular season quarterback than Justin Herbert. Fine. And I like Dak Prescott. I don't like being put in the role of crapping on him. I just get annoyed when Dak Prescott gets lumped in with guys that win playoff games.
In the NFC, Dak's the best quarterback, is he not?
Jimmy Garoppolo took a
But
team
Jimmy's dead.
And led with 7 minutes. Well, but he's
right now, of the players that can currently walk, who is the best quarterback of a contender in the NFC? Geno Smith? I'll take Geno Smith as the answer, but not Dak Prescott.
Tom Brady?
Tom Brady sucks. Have you seen Tom Brady play this year? Like, my guy.
He looked pretty good at the end of the game. He threaded a needle. It got called back, but he absolutely threaded a needle, threw a dime, if you will, to Curtis Godwin. That was like, he picked that team up.
Tom Brady. It could be coaching. It could be coaching. I'm willing to admit that. But Tom Brady looks every bit of 46 years old right now. Like that is a bad offense.
All right.
Tom Brady looks like he's going through
Dak
the motions.
over Tom Brady right now? If you had to pick a quarterback, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I wouldn't do that.
Wow.
Tom Brady, let's guys, okay, please humor me for a
second.
If I could, I want to have some fun right now.
Hey, humor me for 10 seconds. I wish I was better at editing, and because I would send that statement out there on Instagram, and I would get it out there, and you would be answering the phone for days.
He would be Dove Kleinman.
I'll do it. Send me it. I'll post it on Instagram. Tom Brady on Sunday was 36 of 54 for 281. That is 5.2 yards per attempt. He threw an interception right to Demario Davis. These are Tom Brady's yards per pass attempt the last 7. 5.2, 5.7, 8.9. We're happy for you. 4.8, 7.4, 5.9, 6.1, 6.8. Tom Brady has been booty all year. And I know that the offense is bad, but he's like halfway through that game, Tom Brady was like 21 of 35 for 78 yards.
Listen, I do see a decline, but he has been throwing little dinks.
Forever.
For 5 years.
He's got
that guy's not running after the
He's
catch.
got Mike Evans. He's got who else? He's got Julio freaking Jones. Who do you want? Tell me if Pat had one of those guys, Godwin, Evans, or Julio.
I'll tell you, Brady's biggest problem is that he is kind of fanboy when it comes to calling for what he wants. Right? He wants Julio Jones. He wants the names, the other old guys that he knows, that he's seen, because he never gets hurt, so he assumes no one else is going to get hurt. And he should have been, lobbying for, Fry from the Cardinals or even Juju. Younger guys, cheaper guys, get more guys. Not that Julio Jones is expensive at this point in his career. He's not. But, you sell your soul to a Peyton Manning when you're the Broncos, to Tom Brady. And
Tom Brady looks old, man. And he looks every bit his age out there right now.
Okay. Lamar Jackson, Jeff, sprained knee.
Yeah.
I talk with folks in Baltimore for our 2-minute drill segment I do on my radio show. And Glenn Clark said, well, remember, he got hurt in the pocket. Like, well, he was taken off out of the pocket. First of all, he was headed out to run. But the point is, like, I always love, like, I loved Eric's line. I've used it a million times now, and usually I credit him, where he said, Cam Newton was never hurt till he got hurt. Now he's always hurt, and now he's done. Right? Like, that's how it works with runners. And, I don't think people realize, like, when you sprain an ankle, it's never back to where it was beforehand. Right? There's an erosion. You get back to where you don't feel it, but you've lost a little bit of flexibility. You've lost a little bit of quick twitch. Tommy, help me out here. You're a track coach, and Tommy's in the chat room. Every time you do that, there's a little wear and tear, and maybe you only lose 0.5% or 1% of your explosion or your change in direction. But you do it once in week 3, and you do it once in week 10, and then you do it once in the next training camp, and then you do it again, and you do it again, and then you take 1% off this knee and 0.5% off that knee, it adds up over time. And when you rely on that explosion and that explosion goes away, you got to learn a new way to play. I would never give Lamar Jackson $250 million if I were a team. I'd want him to play great, and I would trade him for everything I could possibly get. I would cash out now. What do you think happens now here moving forward, Lamar Jackson being hurt, coming down the stretch of this, and with a contract looming out there?
I think he ain't going to see a higher offer than what he last got from the Ravens. I tell you that. I mean, it's and I think he'd be smart to go back and look at what they last offered him and say, I'll take it. Because, and I thought that before the season. I mean, it's just,
oh yeah,
as you said, the way he plays, the risk he takes with his body, the likelihood that he's not going to be a quarterback who plays for 15 years. All those things should factor into how you look at your long-term future. So whatever you can get now, you should get that's guaranteed. And I think I was listening to Trent Green on your show on Monday talk about that too. Like, it's not, I understand the ego. I understand the desire to surpass the last guy, Deshaun Watson, and the money he got as far as guaranteed money, but that's an outlier contract, and you're still getting paid close to the top of the market. You're still getting paid in a way that's going to give you generational wealth. And even before he got hurt, that offense is taking some hits. And that's even the bigger question too, is like, how long, once you get that kind of money, if the players around you now, while you're cheap, aren't getting it done for you, what's going to be around you once you're starting to gobble up more of the salary cap? That's got to factor into his calculus as well. So if you want to be the guy who gets all the money, look at Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay and what happens when you start losing the people around you. So yeah, I look, short term, I do believe they've got enough defensively, even though they've lost some leads, to get to the playoffs. I imagine the Bengals are going to surpass them with him being out now, because they're going to be more vulnerable with Tyler Huntley playing quarterback.
Tough schedule.
I don't see them. Yeah. The schedule favors them, but still, it's like they've been struggling to score points before this point. Blew a game to Jacksonville. Obviously struggled with the Broncos, who are not a dominant offensive team. But I think they got the Ravens still, right? They still got the Bengals at the end of the season. Right?
Last week of the year.
Yeah. So that could decide the division right there. So a scout told me earlier this year that if he goes on a deep playoff runs and win the championship, he's going to be able to make the kind of demands he wants to make and get them. But without that, I don't see where your leverage is. I mean, yeah, you got an MVP, you had a great run, but second year in a row you've been banged up at the end of the year. That's not a good sign for you going to your next contract negotiation.
Yeah, by the way, people don't know the schedule. Bengals, Cleveland at home, at Tampa, at New England, Buffalo at home, Baltimore at home for the Ravens, at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland, Atlanta at home, Pittsburgh at home, at Cincinnati. So the Bengals, the one thing that's looming there. I interviewed Mark Cuban once, to your point about the contract, Jeff, and I asked him about selling broadcast.com. I defy someone to go find broadcast.com. Mark Cuban and his partner sold it. I think it was for somewhere like $4.7 billion, something like that. And he got about half of it. And he told me the story. He said, we got offered $100 million. We're like, no. We got offered $500 million. We're like, no. We got offered $1 billion, 2, 5, whatever it was. And maybe I'm wrong on the numbers. If you go back and you find out, no, they only got $3 billion. I'm sorry. It's been 20 years since I interviewed him. And he said, at that point, my partner said no. And I'm like, dude, that's it. I'm out. Like, I don't know. Maybe we can get more. Maybe we can't. But I can't spend $2 billion, so I'm going to do it. Well, this ain't $2 billion, but $250 million. I mean, with a large portion of it guaranteed. I don't know how you walk on that. What would a Lamar Jackson bring on the open market, right? Like, I think Houston would be interested. I think there are teams that are desperate that are down at the bottom that would come calling and would offer a pretty good price, wouldn't they, Eric?
No, I don't think you have to be desperate to offer something to Lamar Jackson. I think you just, I think you're probably talking 40 to 45 million a year. Like, that's probably a market rate for him. I think, he's somebody, and I think the Ravens probably understand this. They have, a little bit of the EDC, every dollar counts sort of thing with him. They know that Lamar is an imperfect player, but a great player, and like they're probably willing to say, look, we're going to give you that big deal. We're going to work around you. And without an agent, that has really hurt him, because there are deals, I think, that make the Ravens happy and Lamar happy that like somebody without an agent just like isn't sort of crafting, right? And that's hurt them. But interestingly, the Ravens holding out on Lamar, like it hasn't really hurt them. Like as far as the numbers are concerned, like they're probably not, he can't hold them for ransom right now the way that I think a lot of people predicted he would be able to. And yet at the same time, you're seeing, I think, a little bit of progress in him as a passer. Like, I mean, his receivers are Demarcus Robinson and, Deshaun Jackson and, who's who of like, holy buckets. Well, how is this guy still in the league? And I think Lamar has like been pretty good as a passer, all considered. And yet at the same time, like his market value hasn't gone up. So I think it's a sound, as much as, we want to see players get their money. Like I think it was a sound move by the Ravens to sort of hold out this way.
He's on pace for like 23-10, right? 23-9. And everyone's like, well, the running, which has declined. If he doesn't get back on the field, it will decline for the fourth straight year, by the way, by only 3 yards. But because he played in 12 games again, he will have played in 12 games each of the last 2 years, 1,200, 1,000, 767, then 764 is where he'll be. And there's no doubt that that's a wonderful weapon, but it's going to go away. Like, nobody thinks he's going to run more. The 2,000-yard rushing season is not out there. The 20-touchdown rushing season is not out there. Those numbers are going down. The passing numbers have to go up. And this year, he's not getting back to the 36 and 6 he was in 19. And so I think this is where I would cash out if I were the Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk about John Robinson and the Titans saying we're cashing out on you. How does that happen? I think it's pretty easy, right, Jeff? We've got Mike Vrabel versus the general manager, and you ain't firing Mike Vrabel, right? Like it's all said and done. Good or bad, right or wrong, for better or worse, Mike Vrabel said, no, he's got to go.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, and not the first time you've heard this story. And we've heard it here in Kansas City, right? A few years ago, and it actually worked out well for the Chiefs in the long run. But John Robinson's done a pretty good job of drafting players. And I saw the owner made a comment or talked about just high standards, and they've done well, but they want to do better. And it's just like they've gotten a pretty good run out of a team that's had to compete with the Chiefs and with the Ravens and the Bills now, and have won 2 AFC South titles in a row and are in first place in position to win another one. This guy went and found Ryan Tannehill, drafted A.J. Brown, drafted a lot of players, Jeffrey Simmons, drafted some guys on a defense that has been, until this season, been pretty feisty, and also hired Mike Vrabel. But it feels like it's weird because the Titans are one of those franchises that it seems like every few years they're having this kind of battle going on there. And it happened, a few years ago when Ken Wisenhunt was the coach and Mike Mularkey was the offensive coordinator, and there was some Mularkey was tight with the ownership, and he found a way to get the job away from Wisenhunt. It's just it's kind of weird, because I think that if there was a time to do this, it'd be in the off season. But Mike Vrabel's got some cachet right now. He's a great coach, and if they're going to have to choose between one of the two, he's staying.
Yeah, and Eric, I'm sure that I don't know how you quantify the value of coach versus GM, but I think most of us would say the coach should win out on that. Is always going to be worth more, just because of no GM is perfect, right? But I for it to happen in season, you've got a lot of connections around the league. It's almost like Vrabel said, I don't like losing A.J. Brown. And he said, if we lose A.J. Brown and this blows up on us, it's your ass. And it blew up on him. And it was John Robinson's ass. I mean, it's just, I know it's a week after A.J. Brown bombed him, but like it smells very like that bad taste after losing to A.J. Brown and the Eagles was what really got things going, at least got him sideways again, or widened the chasm, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we've seen this a couple, like as Jeff said, you've seen in Kansas City, July of 2017 when they got rid of John Dorsey and put in Brett Veach. That was very much a nod to Andy Reid and his stature with the Chiefs. And obviously the Chiefs won a Super Bowl and flags fly forever, so everybody's going to think of that as a positive move. But if you look at the 18, 19, and 20 drafts, like there were problems, right, with Veach, right? I think the Chiefs have turned it around from I think Veach has really grown well into that role. You see other situations like in Houston where Bill O'Brien gets control of the thing, and we had Jack Easterby on the podcast because he's one of friends with Thomas, and it's like, what did you do when you didn't have a first and second round pick for 2 straight years? Like, what the heck is and like that thing went kaput. And you've seen Bill Parcells has famously said, look, if you're going to make me cook, you better let me buy some of the groceries. But I think for the most part, most of these coaches are not good enough. Means good enough's like not maybe the right word, but like most of these guys, when they try to do more than coach, they struggle. And so, the Chiefs got lucky because they drafted Mahomes, and that really helped them curb the losses of a bunch of bad drafts. The thing I fear for the Titans is you got Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback. You have Malik Willis, who has some potential, I think, but like you don't really have the ace in the hole in case Vrabel and his whoever he puts in charge of the team as far as the 53. If that person struggles drafting, you don't have the safety net that the Chiefs had when that happened to them. So I get worried whenever I see this happen. Chip Kelly was the same, when he was at the Eagles and they gave him personnel, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if this is a great, and maybe John Robinson had to go for other reasons, but this, I think, sent a few waves through the league in terms of like, this is another coach getting a power trip, and, it's not going to end well.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a division with more drama than the AFC South when it comes to front office and head coaches? It's like Titans just had to jump in there and be a part of it. Jacksonville's got Urban Meyer, Colts have got Jeff Saturday and all their Jim Irsay stuff. And then
the Jags have
Houston, their craziness.
Yeah, don't drafting Trayvon Walker, and like the Titans are like, hold my beer.
Yeah, well, and hold the Texans beer, because you spent the last year talking about the church that is the Houston Texans. I mean, that's a fun house down there as well. So yeah, that's a good point, Jeff. It is the spot. Dallas can have some fun. Odell Beckham Jr. to Dallas seemed like it was all but a foregone conclusion. Jerry Jones was talking about it on radio shows, but then now we're not sure about his knee. What? First of all, I would like Odell Beckham Jr. to just get somewhere, so I could stop seeing Odell Beckham Jr. on our rundown, because I don't think he's that good, right? But
or that healthy.
Well, clearly, although there's video out there of him working out. Did you see him squatting and using TheraBands and cutting and twisting? What's to believe here, Jeff?
Well, I think what's to believe is what we've talked about, which is that the timetable for him coming back and playing productive football in this league, based on when he had that injury and when he had surgery, which was in March, is not realistic. And so Jerry Jones, at last, somebody has moved the ball forward in this conversation and taken it out of the hands of Odell Beckham and his agents and his marketing team, who've been trying to sell him as this guy that everybody's fighting over and wants to get and believes he can be what he was in LA last year. And it's just, he's not going to play this year, and Jerry Jones finally, to his credit, Jerry has his flaws, but when he gets in front of a microphone, he's going to tell you what he thinks and give you some information. And the information we got from that was he's not worth signing right now. And the only way he helps any team, not just the Cowboys, is if he can play. If he can play before February, and he can't do that. And so this has all been much ado about nothing, and it's great for Odell Beckham and his ego. But at the end of the day, he's not playing this year. That's clear now.
Yeah, that's what, or the Cowboys would sign him. But they don't need him, do they, Eric? Cowboys can't possibly need him when they have Dak the Conqueror at quarterback. What could Odell Beckham Jr. possibly mean for Dak Prescott?
Nothing. He's perfect. No notes.
Yeah.
And so like Michael Gallup's coming back from an ACL that he tore much earlier than Odell did, and he's looked very good. CeeDee Lamb is one of the best receivers in the entire NFL. Dalton Schultz, a good tight end. Noah Brown's a good number 3, and Tony Paul. Like, they don't need him. When I asked around the league about Odell, the answer I got multiple times was he's not healthy. And so what is he going to be able to do? If your evaluation of him is he's not healthy, a couple weeks ago, like, what is he going to be able to do for a team? I mean, there's 5 weeks left in the regular season.
Well, I think it begs the question, like, you can sign a guy if you believe that he's going to be healthy, right? And the ACL is a what are we at now? 95, 96% return rate. I mean,
yeah, but return to what though? I mean, he's got to learn the offense. He's got to
No, my point is you can sign him to a multi-year deal.
But
right?
That's the problem, though. No one wants him for that, right?
Well, or he wants to just go have a big game and then turn that into a bigger contract than what he's being offered, right? That's the deal. He wants more than what's being offered because it would be worthwhile to pay him to rehab at your place and have him for the next couple of years. Give him $1 million, $1.5 million to rehab this year, and then you take him to whatever numbers he's worth. But he obviously thinks he's worth more than that. And he needs to get on the field to prove that he can play, right? That's the disconnect here.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it. I think that it's overrating his value to go sign him to just rehab for you. And I think that you can find better options in free agency and in the draft than him. I think the value he adds is that he could offer you something this year, right now, if you have a chance to win a championship. But he doesn't offer that. And so I think Hound Dog, just made a good point about it. It was just like there's so much that comes with this guy, and there's not really a lot. I think the media does spend too much time focusing on name power, star power, and this to me is a perfect example of this. I think there was so much rumbling around this guy for so long, and it was all agent driven. Just because people wanted to sign. How many times we hear he's in Kansas City, he's eating dinner downtown, and the Chiefs are interested? They weren't interested in him, but it just gained momentum because it's OBJ, and that's part of the downside of him. That's what comes with it. It's a circus that comes with him, and it's just not worth it.
Speaking of the circus, Deshaun Watson has brought one to Cleveland. All kinds of boos raining down on him. They won in spite of him. He didn't play well. No touchdowns and an INT. I don't think you should expect him to play well. This is not the finished product. There's a lot of rust for him to knock off. Any chance, Eric, that we see Deshaun Watson, making an appreciable difference? At 7 losses, they're only 2 games behind what is the bottom team that's in the 7-5 Jets. So mathematically, they're in the mix. If they would get red hot, they can run them down. But is there any reason to think that they can do it with Deshaun Watson this year?
I don't think so. I mean, for one, that team, the offense is just not constructed for Deshaun Watson. He's a spread him out. Even at Clemson, he was a spread him out, multiple wide receivers in the gun, run option stuff. I mean, that offense is constructed for Baker Mayfield. That offense is constructed for Jacoby Brissett, under center, play action heavy, deep dropbacks, all this stuff that he's not terribly. I mean, he's not good at it. It's an offense that's constructed well for but it's more for a mediocre quarterback who needs to be in rhythm. And Deshaun Watson's not a rhythm guy. He's a 3 seconds in the pocket guy. And so I think it's just not well fit. And then the Browns are one of the softest teams in football against the run. And this is an NFL season where the run game kind of matters because of all the quarterback play being down. So I just don't see it. They are 6-point dogs this week in Cincinnati. They've won the last 4 against the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken, or no, they're 4-0 against Burrow. So I could see maybe a little bit. I could see a little bit of a letdown here for the Bengals after a big win against the Chiefs, but I just don't see them being able to consistently play a good team football and win right now.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of people talk about how long it takes to knock the rust off. I remember Michael Vick in the 30 for 30, talking about how long it took him to get going and get to where he needed to be to play at a high level. Len Dawson talked about it. I know that's a long, long time ago in a different game, but after sitting on the bench for 3 or 4 years with the Steelers and Browns, that, he was always grateful that Hank Stram gave him time to kind of get back into the rhythm of playing. And I think the idea that Deshaun Watson's going to light it up and lead the Browns through an at Bengals, home for Ravens, then Saints, but at Commanders and at Steelers, that's a pretty salty run. This is about Deshaun Watson knocking off rust, getting through the booze, and letting Cleveland get used to the fact that he's not going anywhere. That's what this is about this year, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah. It's PR to a certain extent. It's about trying to, okay, everybody who doesn't like the guy, who's got an issue with what went on, let's get out of your system. He's on the field. Let's try to get the narrative moving towards what's happening with him playing, the rust. But I also agree with Eric that there is an interesting subplot to what's happening in Cleveland, because along with the offensive personnel there, the coach really has never really had a quarterback like this. and so when you're Kevin Stefanski and you've been dealing with guys like Kirk Cousins or guys like Baker Mayfield, you used to coach in a certain kind of way. And I do wonder, since they've got so much committed to that roster and he's going to cost so much now, like how do they try to morph this and make it fit together? Because, and by no means am I trying to say this is what's going to happen to Deshaun Watson, but we're seeing what's happening with Russell Wilson in Denver right now to a certain extent. Yeah, they're running a variation of the West Coast offense, which he did in Seattle. He's doing it in Denver too, but there's obviously a disconnect between the way he's playing, the people he has around him, what they're asking of him. And sometimes when you ask a quarterback to be something he's not, to fit into, to put a square peg into a round hole, you can get a lot of mixed returns for a long period of time. So I don't think it's just about Deshaun Watson knocking off the rust. It's about them figuring out what kind of offense we want to run with this guy as our quarterback, who's going to cost us $200+ million for the next 5 years.
The Raiders have ripped off 3 straight wins. What does this mean, Eric? What do we take away from this? Are they a dangerous team? They've got Kansas City in the final week. They could be a real thorn. Their side, they almost beat them earlier when they weren't playing well. Are the Raiders something to be feared, or is it at least, excitement that, okay, this group might work, took time to mesh, but, this collection of talent with this coach can be productive? Is it as simple as setting them up for something in 23?
Yeah, I think it's more setting that, so the Raiders last year were 10-7, but their point differential was like a 7-10 team. And so that was a lot of, early this season, they had lost a bunch of 1-score games and and people are like, well, this team's better than their record. And now you're starting to see it come by. You don't always get that happening in first half of the year to second half of the year. So I think that it's getting better for them from that perspective. They played really, Josh Jacobs is doing an amazing job this year. He's probably the best running back in the NFL right now. Devontae Adams is obviously good. But this is a team that lost to the Indianapolis Colts and Jeff Saturday at home. That was their last loss. So, I think that they're salty. I think, my under 8.5 win total bet on them, that's, they need 2 more losses for that to hit. So I'm a little nervous about that. But, teams like this tend to lose games like the one tomorrow to the Rams. And so let's see them win another game that they're supposed to win first.
Yeah, that's the wins have come against at Denver, easy. At Seattle, that's legit. When you go beat
Seattle, that was an overtime game, right? Like that could have gone either way.
But they won it, and they hadn't been doing that. They hadn't been winning those games, and then they beat the Chargers, of course. Who doesn't, right? And now what's left at Rams, Pats at home, at Steelers, Niners with a backup quarterback, and then the Chiefs, right, at their place. And who knows what the Chiefs will have to play for at that time? Probably something with only one thing available. But if we're going to mention the Browns at 5-7, there is a path for the Raiders to get to the playoffs. Is there not, Jeff? Do you think they should be?
I think they're very viable. I think that they, of all the teams that are in that 5-7 mix, Steelers, Lions, who we'll get into a little bit here as the show winds down, and these guys. I mean, what's that?
The team that don't sleep on the Jaguars playoffs.
Let him finish.
I'm just interjecting here.
Just sleep on. Okay. All I'm saying is, without Hunter Renfrow, without Darren Waller, both of whom are coming off IR, and I think Waller might come off this week against the Rams. It's pretty dang impressive for them to be putting up the numbers they're putting up on offense, especially with Jacobs and Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams has almost 700 yards receiving in the last 5 games, and Josh Jacobs has like 500 yards rushing or something like that in the last 3 games. I mean, they've been on a tear. And as you said, if they can get 3 wins in 3 winnable games here, if they're sitting there at 8-7 with 2 to play, I like their odds a lot, just because they did give the Chiefs a tough time in that first game. And the Chiefs, they'll be probably still playing for that first round bye. But if that's decided by that point, somehow the Chiefs slip up somewhere along the way, then they've got a really easy shot here. And 6-1 score losses here. I think the first 3 weeks they lost. I think the total point differential, or the total of their losses, was like 10 points, something like that. And so they've been close.
Their first 3 you're talking about?
Yeah, their first 3, right? It's like something like not more than 10 points.
It was 13 points.
13
points. It was actually when they were 1-4, they had lost 4 games by 14 points.
Okay, so the first 3 were what, though? I think the first 3 were like 10
points. They lost by 5 to the Chargers, 24-19. They lost by 6 to the Cardinals, 29-23. But that was, remember, tied, and they lost that in overtime on the sack strip, right? And then then I guess maybe it was like at the end of regulation they were 0-3, but at the end of regulation they've been outscored collectively by 7 points.
Yeah. So it's. Of all those teams that are in that mid-tier, like right below that 6-6 level, or like knock on the door, that last playoff spot, they're probably playing the best.
Yeah, they are playing well. The Lions, Eric, your beloved Detroit Lions, they've become your team, not Jeff, who's a Michigan guy. They're your team.
But Jeff, when we were at lunch at Nada, when we were watching Red Zone together, I said, Jeff, every time your Lions scored, I said, Jeff, let's watch Jeff's Lions for a sec here.
Right. He's trying to pull me in. It's big peer pressure.
Yeah. Are you buying it, Jeff?
I think, look, they got the Vikings and the Jets. So those are 2 tough. If they can get over that hump, then yeah, I like them. It's hard to see them winning both those games, let alone one of them. It's as being a long-time follower of this team, this is where just like with the Buffalo game on Thanksgiving. It's like they can look so good, and then at the last minute, somehow that loss is coming. So they've gotten better. I think Jared Goff is probably not getting enough credit for the way he's been playing, the way that offense has been playing around him. And I like Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator there, and Aaron Glenn's turned things around with that defense, playing much better. But man, let's talk in a couple weeks, and I'll be a little higher on them.
All right, Eric, here you go. By the way, the Commanders, Seahawks and Giants in front of them in the playoffs. Those are the teams down at the bottom. Giants and Seahawks hold the last 2 spots. 7-4-1 Giants, who are not quite in a free fall. They're not the 5-0, 6-0 team.
That tie hurt the Lions a lot.
Yeah, yes, it did. And the Seahawks at 7-5 are coming back to earth and looking a lot more mediocre. Commanders at 7-5-1 have already played 13 games. Their bye is this week finally, but that tie is going to hurt them as well. It limits to how many wins that they can get to. Are you actually buying your own BS that the Lions are going to fight their way into the playoffs?
Well, they're going to go over 6.5 wins, I think, and cash that bet, Soren. So yes, I like that. I think they probably have a 10% chance. Just again, like they have tiebreakers over Washington and New York, and those don't matter anymore because they have, the ties are relevant. They're not going to finish with the same record as either of those teams. They have a tiebreaker the other way, the wrong way with Seattle because of a loss early. Like I look back at their season and I think, you really want to get that win in Minnesota when you had a 2-touchdown lead. You really want to hang on against Dolphins when you had a 2-touchdown lead. And, you kind of want to, I think the Bills game, Jeff, it proved to me that they're a good football team. It just, they're a little bit of ways away. Now they're favored by 2.5 points against the Vikings, which means, and again, the 10-2 Minnesota Vikings and the 5-7 Detroit Lions are considered on a neutral field the same power ranking of a team in the betting market's view. Obviously, the Vikings with a win will clinch the NFC North. I think that they had the Panthers after the Jets.
Yeah.
Then they have Bears at home,
super
Packers on the road, but maybe with Jordan Love. Like there's a path. I just don't think they're going to make it. But I do think like if they get to 8-9, I think my points have been proven. I think if they get to 7-10, the bet wins. Like I think this team's good, and I wish that they would have gone back early in the season and won a couple close games. But
Cowboys game.
Yeah, the Cowboys, like they fumbled going in, and like that they were going to take a lead in that game, and then so I think that Dan Campbell has bought himself another year. I think Jared Goff has at least bought himself the first half of a year after they groom a rookie that they take with the Rams pick. Like this is a great year for the Detroit Lions.
It's 8-9,
great year.
No, it's amazing how the math guy is finding victory. 8-9, I think I've proven my point. 7-10, I'm my bet. Okay. All right, I guess.
I mean, I wasn't gonna. I didn't say that they were. I mean, this is a team that hasn't won their division since it was the NFC Central,
and will not again this year
in 1993. Like the Roar. Look, like John Nash's character, Russell Crowe plays him in A Beautiful Mind. It will take some of you the term of your natural lives to realize the Roar is being restored, but it's being restored.
Do you really think 4 years from now, Dan Campbell's the head coach of the Detroit Lions?
How many years from now?
4.
I mean, no, but I think 25 of these coaches are fired by then.
And I would agree, but we're not taking each one of them and restoring their roar. You're restoring the roar here. Roar is not restored.
Yes, Petro. I will bet
a third. Go me too.
It's got to be 2 steak dinners by then.
I'm already a fat ass. Are you trying to kill me by losing food, so much food to me that I can't possibly consume it all?
Wayne Font's got a bunch of years in a row. Like, can we get Wayne Font's and like he's the best Lions coach since Jim Caldwell. But like since other than Jim Caldwell, this is the best Lions coach since Wayne Font's.
Yeah. Okay.
Wayne Font's got years.
Jim Caldwell won and got fired. This guy will not win and probably will. I'll probably end up
winning, Petro. They're
8-9 is not winning. 8-9 is
4 out of 5.
Okay. You're right. I mean, I actually like what they're doing. I like a lot of the people involved. I just like giving you crap. That's my favorite part of it. Baker Mayfield's career is restored, right? He's in LA. Is this anything speed bump to him trying to do college football games for Fox Sports 2? What's this amount to now, Jeff?
Oh, I don't know. And to me, it's just okay. Let's just see where he's at. Let's see if maybe we can find some kind of a trade value in him, move him on someplace else. He's going to be in this spin cycle now where quarterbacks, he's in the Geno Smith place, and if he's lucky, he could end up like Geno Smith, kind of bouncing around the NFL and finding a home with a team and a quarterback, a system that can favor his quarterback skill set. But I don't know. I mean, he's one of those guys that I could easily see him being Brady Quinn, standing on the sideline somewhere in like 5 years, like you said, just doing college football broadcasts and talking a good game, because I don't know if his personality is the kind where he can actually sit and learn and grow and stick around the NFL for a long period of time. So I'm not sold.
It's amazing. He tried to be the great teammate, and he made an ass of himself doing that, like headbutting everybody with their helmet on. Like, look, I'm so into it. I'm so fired up. I'm headbutting guys. Like, just calm down for 5 minutes, kid. Is there any path to a Ryan Tannehill type resurrection? He comes in behind somebody, nobody's thinking much of him, gets his shot, grabs a hold of it, and at 30 years old, drives a good running lead, a good defense on a well-coached team, and resurrects his career.
Because no one in the league was texting people saying, "Look, Ryan Tannehill's a turd." You know what I mean? Like that Baker Mayfield is considered too far gone. Like I think he's which Carr? David Carr, right? Like what was that the first time in league history where there were 2 number 1 overall picks on the same team? David Carr and Eli Manning. Like right now you have Stafford and Mayfield. Like I think Mayfield's gonna like just be the backup, and he's just gonna chill out for a while, make his money, get his pension. I mean, I don't know. Like at this point, it's just hard, right? Like quarterbacks, and again, this is like the part of like I don't think we can quantify yet is like when that guy goes in the huddle and everybody rolls their eyes when you call him the play. It's just like you know, it takes a long time to rebound from that.
Yeah, and also I think with the rebound when you've been a high draft pick who's busted and had to go elsewhere, you got to have something intriguing about you. And so, like a Marcus Mariota, you know, Arthur Smith knew him in Tennessee. You can run a little bit. Like we're going to do some of this. You know, we do some of this read option design run stuff. Tannehill was a guy, again, another mobile guy, athletic player who had a season where he'd had some success. I mean, it's just, I think you have to be a better athlete than what Mayfield is. If you're asking him to just be a passer, he can't get by on that alone.
It's amazing that at the end of the 2020 season and training camp of 2021, the man was coming off a year where he threw 26 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions, 96 passer rating, 66 QBR, 3,500 yards, 63% completion. Not great, but he knew how to make the plays when it counted. He was a winner. He won a playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, first playoff win for the Cleveland Browns in forever. He was about ready to take over Cleveland, right? He was about ready to take over Cleveland. It was all right there, and then it just absolutely fell apart. And he had the Chiefs, albeit with a concussed Patrick Mahomes, but he had the Chiefs going forward on 4th down at the end of a playoff game to survive and advance against them. That's the job he was doing on the road after beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now no one gives him even, the guy can't get a change for a cup of coffee while he's standing on the street corner asking to be a quarterback, except for the Rams roster is such a hot mess. But I think it's amazing. I'd give him a shot as a backup. When you bring him in, I mean, on a nothing contract and give him a shot and see what you can do, I'd take a shot. If I had an established veteran guy.
Go to the Giants.
Yeah, I would too, but I just
Giants next year.
Yeah, I like that. You give a shot, Eric?
Yeah, again, I just think he's like, remember when the Niners tried to give David Carr a shot and he got in the game and like everybody's like, oh, that's why you suck. Like I feel like some of these guys, it's like, you know, they get their even Mariota's been okay this year, but like even then, like you watch their games, like, oh, that's why he stopped playing.
All right, what are you looking at, Jeff? This week, what's got you? Is a game, a matchup, anything that's caught your fancy?
Teams without their quarterbacks. I want to see the Ravens and I want to see the Niners. You know, I think Brock Purdy, Tyler Huntley are going to have a lot of attention on them just because of what they're going to mean to those teams' respective chances of winning the divisions and making playoff runs. So I want to see how they play.
Eric?
Chargers, Dolphins. I want to see the tire fire again.
For those that are new to the pod or just turning on, the tire fire is?
I mean, well, it's going to be fun either way, right? Because Herbert's either going to light the thing on fire and play well, and everybody's going to be like, you took Tua over Herbert. That's going to be funny. Or like the Dolphins, which I think will happen. The Dolphins are just going to out-scheme Brandon Staley to death, and they're going to lose. And the San Diego Chargers are going to be 6-7, which will be even more funny to me.
So you like the Dolphins in that game?
They're favored by a full field goal in that game.
Yes, they are on the road at the Chargers. The Chargers need a win. If they need a win, or they're going to be looking for a coach. Sean Payton may be the next coach of the Chargers if they don't get a win there. Brandon Staley better be looking over his shoulder. I'll take Bucs Niners. The decrepit, done, kaput Tom Brady dragging the Bucs asses out to San Francisco to go up against Brock Purdy, where Brock Purdy and the Niners are 3.5-point favorites. I think you find out a lot about both teams. Can Brock Purdy move the ball at all against a really salty defense? And does Tom Brady at least have enough to do it when it counts? I mean, he's going to have a tough go of it, but his defense is going to keep him in a game. I think that's a really intriguing game right there. I want to see Purdy versus Brady, right? Like Brock Purdy better enjoy. Listen, kids, I started against Tom Brady. Tom freaking Brady I started against. Look, it's right here. I've got the tape. Watch it right now. I think that'll be great. All right, that's going to do it for us. Remember, if you're catching us on the podcast, we stream live Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Central. You can be a part of the chat room on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, so you can catch us there. Make sure you follow us on the Twitter. That's been scrolling across on the bottom. Of course, we want to thank our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. They are Kansas City's premier parking lot, company, whatever you need. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, serving the entire metro area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at gannasphalt.com or call them. Tell them you heard about it on the 2D podcast, 816-484-3338. That's 816-484-3338. Online at gannasphalt.com. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lots. Thank you very much for joining us here today.